Will we lose? You know what? On this, I don't think we should. And the reason I say that is because I believe this is for a greater good of not just the person that's deciding it now, but for the generations to come.
Part of me felt quite patriotic. I'm not a Warriors fan, but I liked that New Zealand was well represented over there. The most noise came from the Kiwi fans.
He doesn't know who he's talking about. I've got the stamina of a gorilla. It might take me 3 weeks to get over
Oh,
it,
no question.
but I will make it through the weekend.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
He's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the show, people. The DSPN podcast. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. Lachlan back from Magic Round. So he's going to share some of his experiences that he's had over the weekend with us in the next wee while. We've got a full show for you today. So if you're listening on Rover, across wherever you find your favourite podcasts, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're watching on the DSPN YouTube channel, again, thank you for supporting us. We are so close to 1 million views now, in just over 20 weeks. So we really appreciate all the support that you give us. If you can click that subscribe button for us, it helps even more. Subscribe on the DSPN YouTube channel. The former All Black, Ali Williams, now heavily ensconced with Auckland FC, AFC. He joins us in the studio today. There's a fair bit of debate going on in Auckland about what to do with Western Springs. And his idea with his cohorts is to put a brand new stadium there. He can explain all about that. Matt Gunn joining us as well. Bulldogs fan. Doggies back on top after Magic Round. We'll do our Super Rugby rankings, which we've held over from Monday. Just waiting for Lachlan to get back so he can agree with all the changes that I've made. And speaking of changes, who is going to be the All Black captain this year? That's how we kick the show off.
Marty sermons brought to you by WebWonks. Generate online leads with WebWonks. Doctors for your Google data.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
The answer to the question is easy. The next All Black captain will, barring injury, be the same guy who was last year's captain. Now, a fair bit of debate emerging again around the man Scott Robertson will choose to lead our national team, but I believe there is no choice to make. Unless Scott Barrett is, for whatever reason, unavailable, then it's him. Why? Because why change? There's a couple of elements to this discussion. Who we think it will be versus who it will be, and who we might want it to be versus who it will actually be. And contrary to what a lot of new generation All Black fans think, no, it's not a social media visibility or popularity contest, nor should it ever be. There's only 2 or 3 players who could even be captain. For starters, it's got to be someone the coach knows that he is picking to start every single game. Also someone who already has that captain's role or has had that role for whatever super franchise side that they play for. There's no one in any of the back line who currently qualifies. It won't be a winger or fullback. Midfield selection, as well you know, is still very uncertain for the All Blacks, so rule them out. Neither first 5 option, Beauden Barrett or Damien McKenzie, are international captains, and neither are first choice halfbacks Roigard or Ratima. So it's a forward then, and for me, there are only 3 real possibilities who are also selection certainties. Cody Taylor, Scott Barrett or Ardie Savea. Ultimately, I believe, like I'm sure everyone else does too, that it's a straight shootout between the last 2. Does popularity with the public count? Well, I guess it does to some extent. Alongside on-pitch performance, being the captain means a significant increase of an expectation on official appearances. Yes, it is all part of the job, captaining our national team. The captain does also get an extra large salary add-on for those extra responsibilities, remembering that the skipper is not only the face of the team, but also the poster boy for all of New Zealand rugby. Ardie Savea is much more popular with the public than Scott Barrett. In terms of social media, your Instagram and TikTok, he's all over it, while Barrett deliberately does none of that. In terms of playing ability, both are highly experienced and world-class in their positions. Both have what it takes and both have been there before. And that very last bit is both where and why my argument ends. Razor has no reason to make a change, so why would he? The reasons behind why he chose Barrett ahead of Ardie from last year remain the same, so why change? Which is why I firmly believe Scott Barrett will be named captain. Status quo maintained.
Devlin.
We welcome back Lachlan Waugh, ladies and gentlemen. The DSPN producer Lachlan Waugh has been at Magic Round in Brisbane over the weekend. A couple of days watching league, 1 day watching in the pub. We'll explain why that was. Features we normally do Monday and Tuesday include our Super Rugby rankings and glass half full. So we're going to combine them both. We'll start with the Super Rugby rankings, mate, and I think you'll agree with my rankings here. I have got number 11, the Drua. Yeah, and they are number 11 for a reason, even though they won on the weekend against New South Wales. Highlanders at 10. That hasn't changed over the last couple of weeks. 8th equal, I've got the Force and New South Wales. Neither of them are going to make the playoffs. There's a mathematical possibility, but they're not going to. MP, Moana Pacifica, sits 6 on the table. I've got them at 7 because I've got the Blues in at 6. Blues were 8 last week. Reds at 5. They were 4 last week. Brumbies at 4. They've dropped down from 3. Third place on the table this week, I've got the Hurricanes, who are up from 5 after those emphatic performances away in Canberra and then smacking up the Chiefs. I've got the Crusaders and the Chiefs at first equal. I'd have the Crusaders in front by a neck because they're coming off that bye and they got that home fixture coming this weekend against the Chiefs. Is there anything to argue about as far as my Super Rugby rankings go?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up with a lot here because you've got the Hurricanes at 3.
Hurricanes at 3.
No, I'd still put the Brumbies ahead of the Hurricanes. Crusaders.
No, the Hurricanes went and beat the Brumbies.
Yeah, but you got to look at the season as a body of work.
No, you don't. You've got to feel the vibe. That's what these rankings are about.
Chelsea beat Liverpool 3-1 on the weekend.
Yeah.
And in the first fixture, Liverpool beat them 2-1. So across the two leagues, Chelsea actually have a better
team.
goals difference.
Yeah, much better
So
team.
does that mean that Chelsea are better than Liverpool?
Irrelevant argument. What you're feeling at the moment is a Hurricane side who dismantled that Chiefs team on the weekend.
Well, they didn't dismantle them in the first half. The second half, they were certainly the better side. They'd probably need to go on a bit of a run now. When you fail to do your job early in the season, now granted, the Hurricanes have had a lot of injuries, and no one's talked about that probably enough, say, compared to the Blues.
Apart from you. Keep harping on about it.
Yeah, because you've got to be fair. If we're going to have a crack at the Blues, you've got to have a crack at the Canes when you talk about the injuries. Crack's probably the wrong word there. Anyway, point is, the Canes need to go on a bit of a run. They're going on that run, but they need to finish it off. Then I'll put them at 3.
Okay, they get a bye, and then the remaining games are home to Highlanders, who are already dead and buried.
Win, yeah.
Okay, away to the Reds. Tough game.
Well, at that point, it's squeaky bum time for the Reds.
Okay, and then
It is now, actually.
home to Moana Pacifica in the last game. Okay, so there's every chance they win 2 out of the next 3. They're a lock to be in the top 6, but it's just form at the right time. And I just think their players, Ruben Love is playing exceptionally well at first 5. Their forwards are dominating. Their forwards are going forward, and that's what the Chiefs will be worried about because they got beaten up in that second half.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Crusaders and the Chiefs quickly because I wouldn't put them 1 equal. I'd say the Crusaders are better. If the Chiefs are dropping a game at home to the Canes,
That was in Wellington.
a team that in Wellington, a team they should be beating, that's not good enough. So the Chiefs probably aren't as good as the Crusaders right now. So I think we're
going to find out this weekend.
Yeah.
Because the thing with the Crusaders, who, as much as they do sit on top of the table, I still have doubts about them because they lost to Moana Pacifica and they lost so badly to them. So is that just a blip in their season?
Well, the Chiefs lost to the Drua.
Plus, they've also lost their first 5, and now you don't know whether James O'Connor is going to have to play 80 minutes every week or not, or how they're going to use them, and that's going to be crucial coming into the playoffs as well. I don't know. I think the Chiefs have done enough to still have that respect.
I find that incredible. You're treating this team like they are the champions of the last 3 or 4 years. The first maybe 3 or 4 weeks, the Chiefs looked really good. And then, I don't know when it really started, but around that Blues win in Hamilton, they have failed to really look an exceptional side.
But they keep winning, though. They're like the Warriors. They keep winning.
Yeah, but so do the Crusaders. So if they keep winning, we've got to look at the quality of performance. And for me, the Crusaders, particularly the winner of the Highlanders, that I thought was another step forward. They look even better across an 80-minute game. So I get what you're saying, but I think the Chiefs, particularly with the Hurricanes, I don't think they've done enough. Now, if they were the Blues, let's switch the fortunes around and say they were the Blues and they'd won it last year, or the Crusaders, they'd won so many before that. Yeah, I'd be on the same page. But the Chiefs haven't won a title since 2013.
I'll accept the argument, but you are wrong. Let's look at the Brumbies and the Reds, who I've got now down at 4 and 5. They're the only 2 Aussie sides that are going to make it.
Why have I touched on this just before, but why have you dropped the Brumbies? I
dropped the Brumbies because they lost at home to the Hurricanes. So you can't have them above the Hurricanes.
Yes, you can, because they're higher on the table.
Not under your logic and reasoning.
They are 2 wins better than the Hurricanes on the table.
But they lost to them at home, and they got beaten by them at home. It wasn't even a close game.
We're going in circles here. It's about the body of work of the season.
It's about the vibe is what it is. This is what we're feeling. Those 2 Aussie sides are the only 2 that are making it. Let's agree on the fact that the Force in New South Wales are gone. As I've said, New South Wales, false economy all season.
You're acting like you're the oracle here, saying that...
Well, I think all my predictions are coming true here.
Well, you said New South Wales season, the Waratahs season, would end at the hands of the Chiefs, and it didn't. So you got that wrong. So you can't act like you are...
I also said that the Drua would be taking scalps, and they've beaten the Reds and New South Wales, right?
Well, it's pretty easy to say that when they play in Fiji that they're going to get some wins there.
Really? So what's wrong with playing in Fiji? It's called a home
There's
game.
There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying it's not a hard prediction.
New South Wales can't win unless you've got Sydney on top of the stadium, mate.
The Waratahs are at home to the Reds, and you yourself admit they are a different team at home. They've got the Crusaders at home. They have the Force away. That's a win because the Force, well, I think it is because I rate the Tars, obviously. And then now the game against the Blues will probably be a loss. Now, I don't think they'll make the top sixes. I don't think they're as good as the Blues. And I don't think they're as good as the Hurricanes. And then obviously the Chiefs and the Crusaders are locked in, and the Brumbies and the Reds, they'll probably make it. The Reds in particular might make us a bit nervous, but they've done enough.
I think they've done enough, yeah.
But the Waratahs aren't just going to fall away and lose every game between now and the end of the year. I guarantee it. I'm doing the Charles Barkley. I guarantee they'll win one more before the end of the year.
If they lose to the Reds, it's gone, okay, completely. If they win against the Reds...
you said that ahead of the Chiefs game a few weeks ago.
If they win against the Reds at home, they're not beating the Crusaders and they're not beating the Blues.
They beat the Crusaders twice last year. They've got a great record
last year.
at home.
I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about the vibe right now.
Anyway,
the Drua are also going to win another game before the season's up, mate. Is it going to be the Blues this weekend?
Well, if they can beat the Reds at home, Drew, then sure.
Okay, so the Blues to make it, I've got them in at 6th. They're in control of their own destiny, I do believe. However, they have to go to Fiji, and then they've got to play a Moana Pacifica side who know that if they win that game, there's every chance that they may make the 6th.
See, again, I think you're overrating Moana Pacifica a little bit here. They did beat the Highlanders, but the Highlanders have fallen off a cliff. You know, the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks, they were a competitive side and got some results, and it seemed that the fitness levels and the training regime that Jamie Joseph had implemented in pre-season was paying off. Now it's the lack of quality that's their downfall, essentially. But they shouldn't be losing to Moana Pacifica at home. But I don't think that is it's nothing. A massive props to MP for the year they've had because it's been a good year based on their history when you compare it to that. But I don't think that's a sign of a great Moana team.
They've got an easy run. They've got an easy run. They play the Blues at home, and then they play the Chiefs away.
The Blues beat them up a few weeks ago.
And then they play the
Did you watch that game at Eden Park? They beat them up.
Okay, so these are their 3 games. I mean, Blues, which is at the local derby, but then away the Chiefs and away the Canes to finish with. I mean, you can't dial it up any worse, can
you can't.
If MP make it, they're going to absolutely earn it.
Yeah, well, if any team, it's been that sort of competition. It's so close that if any team makes it, I don't think you're going to get there by chance. But it could be a situation, and this is where the Reds, this is where they might benefit if you did enough at the start of the year. Even if you limp over the finish line, the work at the start was enough. Which a few years ago, that wasn't the case. You could probably lose, you'd only win a 30-year game, so you'd still get to the top.
Well, 5 and 9 last year made it, okay, but that was the top 8. They did the top 8. Let us pivot and go to the NRL because you're back from Magic Round, and we'll play a little game of
Glass Half Full.
Magic Round.
The event as a whole?
As a whole.
I've got about 6 or 7 glasses that are overflowing. I'm looking for more. I can't find it. Oh, it's just superb.
How good?
It's so good. I don't know where to start because, we got there on the Thursday, obviously, so we had the entirety of Friday to just kind of relax and chill. The first thing I want to talk about is how great their sports stores are. I knew this already about Australia, but we went to one in sort of the Central City area, Rebel Sport, but I think they just call it Rebel over there. And the amount of kit, it was just decked out in NRL kit. I had 3 jerseys, Broncos jerseys in my hands, ready to buy them, realising I don't have this much money, so I had to pick one in the end. But that was great. But the Friday night was great. I had dinner at the Caxton Hotel right next to the stadium.
There you go.
Bought myself a steak, had about 3 or 4 beers before we went to the stadium. The ground itself, the atmosphere, just the structure, just incredible. Suncorp Stadium.
Yeah, brilliant stadium. It's a perfect football stadium, isn't it? Whatever football code it is, rugby league or football.
It feels, I've heard people describe, I think, a lot of the football stadiums in, South America, but I think especially in Mexico. One of our old colleagues, Michael Burgess, described the stadium in Mexico like this, but it's just so steep that it feels so close. You're looking down, and for the second night, we were at the very back at the top, but it was right there. The ground felt right there.
Yeah, it's like I think the Cape Town one that they used to do for South Africa, Old Athletic Park. They're right. You're kind of, you're almost peering over the ground.
Yeah, you feel like you can actually just jump off and land in the field. So, no, the stadium's great. The atmosphere is just incredible. The stadium, you'll be able to see this on the TV. It's not like packed, absolutely packed, but there's people spread out. So obviously people come and go from the games and leave the stadium. Because I think you can leave and come back and just go to get your hand stepped. But some of the people were sitting around, just absolute characters. Like I went over to Australia thinking, I've got a couple of good lines, I've got some good jokes. I'm a pretty funny guy, and you'll throw a few out there, and then there's like a dodgy Cowboys fan over there or a Brisbane fan over there throwing one right back. And I'm like, I've got nothing.
I got nothing?
Oh, I'm not that funny.
Okay. Yes! Glass half full, glass half empty on the Warriors crowd, because that noise came through the television when the Warriors came onto the field. It was like a home game.
I'll say this about the Warriors, and as much as I don't like that club, I say it a lot. I have been giving them their props the last few weeks because they keep on winning. That's all that matters. The most number of jerseys that I saw, if I was to pick any team, would have been Warriors jerseys. Now, granted, I wasn't at the stadium on the Sunday. I didn't see them for when the Broncos played.
Explain that.
Yeah. So I can't really compare it to what it was like when Brisbane played there. But the Warriors, the number of jerseys I saw was incredible. And the noise when the team came out, and the noise of the fans. I think I sent you a picture of the little sort of collection of fans at the end of the field. We were on the other side of it. They were raucous. And that was the best game and the best atmosphere, that Cowboys game, out of all of them. And I can't... This is going to sound really ridiculous because I'm a Brisbane fan. I don't like the Warriors. Part of me felt quite patriotic.
Here we go.
Because I liked that. I'm not a Warriors fan, but I liked that New Zealand was well represented over there, and the most noise came from the Kiwi fans. And part of the New Zealand loving part of me, which is a big part of me, thought, I do actually quite like this. I'm going to get behind the Warriors.
Yeah. Glass half full, glass half empty, your Broncos.
Oh, glass half empty, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
But you were glass half full last week and glass half empty the week before.
So
glass half
I've
full.
just realised this is the most hot and I've been a Brisbane fan for 17 years. There's not been a team. 2014 was similar to this, but I haven't known a Broncos team that's this hot and cold. That one week will beat a top four side, or like the Bulldogs, and the next week will put the bed against. Granted, Penrith, I think we all agree, were probably going to come right at some point, but they were by the numbers, bottom of the table. Yeah. But they totally outplayed us defensively. And I got nervous through the first few sets that the Broncos had because we had a lot of ball, we had a lot of field position, and I realised we're not actually breaking their line here. We can't get through it's not as if we're making any hint of a line break and actually bending the line. They're holding us out quite well, and I thought it's a matter of time before they get a couple of sets in our half and they score some points.
Let's talk about one of the best stats in rugby league right now. 0-7.
No. There's an asterisk next to that.
0-7.
I'm 0-6.
You've been to 6 Broncos games live, and you've won how many?
0.
You went to Magic Round in Brisbane.
Yeah.
You didn't get a ticket on the Sunday to watch the Broncos, so you watched in a pub.
I went to a pub,
And?
They lost.
So now you can't even be in the same city as your team. This is actually a curse. This is real from now on. You've watched in 2 different countries. You've watched regular season games. You've watched a grand final. You've gone to Magic Round, and they still lose every time you turn up. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
I've got no reply, to be honest.
Glass half full, glass half empty. We'll end on the Warriors, and 6 out of 7. And you said this stat before you left. You said, take away the Canberra game, they've won 5 out of the last 6. Well, Lachlan, now it's 6 out of 7. 3 wins, the loss to the Storm, big bad loss, 3 more wins on the back of that. And look, I've had arguments all weekend with people saying, they've only played this team, I don't care who they play. Every team in this league has shown it's capable of winning games, and against teams that you don't think they're going to win, because no one's tipping 8 out of 8 every week, are they? It's impossible to tip 8 out of 8, right? So it doesn't matter. You get your wins. They've got 6 of them, okay, out of 8 games.
You can't look at a draw. And I said last week they've got a soft draw, but at the same time, you can't look at one and criticise the teams they've played. They've only played these guys, or actually they've had a tough draw, because every year we talk about how much the top 8 changes. There's 2 to 3 teams, sometimes 4 new teams in the top 8. So there's no point worrying about who was in the 8 last year, because about half of them won't be in the 8 this year.
3 teams miss out.
And then if you're worrying about who might make the 8 this year, well, half of those probably didn't make the 8 last year, so can we actually trust them?
Exactly.
So there's no point talking about that. You can talk about some of the locations the Warriors play in, but at the same time, I can't, because the Broncos, whenever they play the Dolphins, it's always at Suncorp, so that's essentially 2 home games.
Yep.
And then the Magic Round game was an away game to Penrith.
Another home game.
So, so I can't complain about that. All that matters is that you win games.
That's all that matters.
If people want to put the Warriors on fraud alert or whatever and say that this team isn't going to win it when it gets to the final series, or if they can get there...
wait and see.
Well, we'll wait and see. Because you don't win a comp by accident. Penrith didn't win 4 in a row by accident. No. Melbourne haven't been the best team for 22 years by accident. And Brisbane in the 90s weren't the best team by accident. The Warriors, if they're good enough, will get there. Right. Now, they'll have to come up against someone like a Melbourne or a Canterbury or a Canberra. Penrith, if they can come right in the final series, and they might get found out if they're not good enough. But all that matters now is you win games. And by the numbers you brought up just there, they're essentially winning 3 out of 4.
That's it.
That's all that matters.
You win 3 out of 4, and they're going to win 16 games.
Well, they did that 2 years ago.
That's exactly right.
Remember they had a run of, I think, 3 losses in 4, or 3 and 5 in 2023, and it was Melbourne, Brisbane and Penrith. I think it was essentially the 3 other best teams of the comp. And then after that period, everyone's like, okay, they're done. They're going to fall away now. But then they started winning and they won, 7 in a row to win the year or something before that end of season loss to the Dolphins. So you just got to just win your games, which Brisbane aren't doing.
This is the DSPN.